1994.
I am so excited for the new Fantastic Four movie.
I saw some stills from that in Starlog, and it looks awful.
Nah, it's Roger Corman. He's a famous director. This is going to be great.
It looks so bad, I bet it never even comes out.
I'll take that bet.
2005.
I'm so excited for the new Fantastic Four movie. Great casting.
It looks okay. Chris Evans looks like a good Johnny Storm.
I don't know about him. I mean, he's the one member of the cast I'm really not sure about.
Oh, he's going to be a big star.
Now, I tell you what, I bet his career fizzles out after this movie, even if it's as good as it looks, and it looks so good.
Really? He's got stars.
No. Typecast. Failure. Mark my words.
2007.
So, new Fantastic Four movie, Silver Surfer, finally on the big screen. It might be on this time.
I mean, yeah, I get it. It looks fantastic, pun intended. But man, I'm just telling you, Chris Evans, this is his last big movie. They're going to recast him for the next one. He's done.
2015.
Did you hear about the Fantastic Four reboot?
No.
2025.
Hey, Dave, I feel like you're avoiding talking about the Fantastic Four.
Yes, I guess I am. I don't have the best track record on these Fantastic Four movies. For one, I'm not sure Pedro Pascal is a star. I'm not sure he's going to make it.
Well, that's just crazy talk.
I just don't see it. And frankly, that's why I've just not talked about this movie at all.
Okay, how about this? Superman or Fantastic Four, who's going to make the most money?
Oh, boy. Well, I'll tell you what, let's start the episode, and I will try to answer that at the end.
Two middle-aged guys try to work it all out. Two middle-aged guys try to work it all out. Two middle-aged guys try to work it all out.
Welcome, everyone, to this episode of Two Middle-Aged Guys Trying to Work It All Out. I'm Chris, and with me this week is my good friend...
Wait. You're not Chris Evans, are you?
No, I'm not. I'm Chris from Two Middle-Aged Guys.
Chris Pine.
No? Okay. Whew, no, not Chris Pine, not
All
Chris
right.
Evans.
Pratt?
No.
No, Chris. Great to see you virtually. Great to be back in TMAG Studios. Great to be on the podcast. I've had a little time off.
Speaking of that time off, it's been a while since we posted an episode. We went dark.
We did.
I think that's the technical term for it. So, which is cool. It makes me sound all kind of like spy, movie or something like that. So anyway, I don't know if you want to share with our listeners kind of what's going on and what caused this hiatus.
Yeah, well, so I had a surgery that was planned, and I don't know if you guys are long-term listeners, a couple years ago I had a neck surgery, and so I had another neck surgery planned, and they got it in, and we were actually going to record some episodes and kind of bank them up, but they got me in early, which some other things going on in our lives, I took the opportunity of getting it in early, about a week and a half early, which was a good thing because after that surgery, I woke up and I knew something was wrong, and they wanted to do another neck surgery, and these were both major surgeries. I was in the hospital for, you add it up, about 2 weeks, but I did about a 10-day stretch of just being in a hospital in another city, so we took a little time off. But we're back because, I'm glad to be back, but I mean, we're coming up on we're starting to recover, and we're coming up on a big summer. We're coming up on the summer of comic book movies. I think that didn't come across as weighty as I hoped it would, but
I mean, there's weight to it. It's my thought there was how many other summers of comic book movies have there been? It's been a bit of an oversaturation lately, I think.
I think that there's been a couple that were important, but we didn't know they were as important. But this one, I'm going to argue that we've got coming up is, maybe less volume, but there's a lot of importance.
There's a lot of stakes with this one.
A lot of stakes, sure. Right? And I think today, what we're going to try to answer, our key questions are, have we, as a movie-going public, And even you and I, as fans of comic books and comic book movies, have we burned out on these? Are we fatigued? And can the things that are coming out this summer, can the two legacy properties, which is DC's Superman and Marvel's Fantastic Four, can they turn this around? And I think it's a legitimate question. I think we've had some big comic book movie summers. I mean, I would say that The Dark Knight and Iron Man came out in the same summer. That was a big deal. We didn't know that was going to be a big deal. We thought, I mean, at least I thought, we're going to get another great Christopher Nolan Batman movie, and we're going to get an Iron Man movie that I had no expectations about, not realizing that we were getting, one of the greatest movies I think ever made in The Dark Knight, and a comic book movie that was so well received that it created an entire comic book movie empire with Iron Man. That was a big summer, and I think a few years back we had Civil War and Batman versus Superman coming out at the same time, which head to head brought Marvel and DC together, and I don't think we fully didn't recognize the stakes of what that was going to be, what the stakes were going to be for DC on that. But this year it's pretty well known that, comic book movies are in a bit of a slump. And, are these two legacy important properties that mean a lot in the history of comic books, that mean a lot in the terms of films? How does this end up for comic book movies? How does this end up for movies in general? How does this speak to tentpole, big budget summer releases, period? So I thought, that we could try to tackle those questions today.
For two middle-aged guys trying to work it all out, I do not know if the stakes have ever been higher.
Really, right? The world might actually be destroyed. We could be devoured. If Galactus is not happy with the quality of these films, we could be in serious trouble. But the stakes are high, though, for the people who are working at Warner Brothers, for the people that are working at Disney, for the people who have jobs in movie theaters, right? They're looking at this and saying, we'd like to keep our jobs, right? Throughout all these things. I mean, these different industries. The yellow butter substance industry, which is basically relies on the movie theaters and the popcorn they serve. The yellow butter substance industry could go under completely if these two films do not do well. And I want to see that survive. I like to eat a couple spoonfuls of that, every night before bed to keep my system,
right,
going.
Keep it lubed up.
Keep everything moving, right? Keep the joints going.
Well, I think that you have laid the groundwork very well. You've set the stakes very well. I propose we skip the games. We get right into it, because I know you are not a well-toned fit machine for podcasting at this point.
I'm not.
You've been off for too long, and I have not seen a Rocky-style montage out of you. So let's not waste any energy. Let's get right into the topic.
I did try to do some pull-ups, like hanging upside down off of a barn. And I died. I was resuscitated, but I did die. I died on my way up to the top of the barn, actually, before I even got into pull-up mode. I just going up the stairs. I just had a heart attack, and they brought me back. And a podcasting preparation montage would actually be fun we're gonna have to come up with that, because that would be a lot of fun, I think, to envision and create. But let's just jump into it. Let's talk about where comic book movies have been. And we're in this modern age of comic book movies, unlike anything we've ever seen before. And, we had Superman in the 70s. We had Superman of various levels of quality of success in the 80s. We had 89's Batman, and then, some 90s Batmans. But where do you think that the comic book movies that we have today, this level of quality, this interconnectedness, or the potential for interconnectedness of the shared universe, where do you think that quality really started? I have an opinion, but I definitely want to hear where you think that began for us as a modern movie-going audience.
Yeah, I also have an opinion, and I'll be very interested to hear what you think, because I have thought about this, and for me, the fulcrum is Iron Man 2. And the reason I cite Iron Man 2 is because everything prior to Iron Man 2 felt like, oh, it's a miracle we're getting a comic book movie.
Sure.
And everything after Iron Man 2 was where it started to become cemented in people's minds that this is a viable property or a viable genre that is going to carry cinema for probably the next 2 decades, all said and done. And then at that point, I think Iron Man 2 and then the movies going forward, it became the expectation rather than, oh, hey, we're getting, another X-Men, or we're getting a Spider-Man, or we're getting a Batman, I didn't see that coming quite yet. After Iron Man 2, the floodgates were open.
Right. So I'm going to go back a little bit further. And I think that, and I'm looking at it more from a quality and a tone. I think Spider-Man, Sam Raimi's Spider-Man, is where I think the possibilities for this opened up, because the quality was so good with Spider-Man 1 and then Spider-Man 2 somehow was better, I think, than Spider-Man 1, which is a great movie. Spider-Man 2 is so good. I think that showed the viability that people will come out and watch these movies, that these are movies for just every audience, not just comic book audience, and the potential for the interconnected world. It didn't really come out in those films because of the rights holder situation was so bad at the time, but you could see it inside this what we call now the Spider-Verse, where you had all these Spider-Man characters and you could see them kind of setting that up. So I don't know. I feel like that quality, that potential, I definitely see the Iron Man 2 point. By the way, Iron Man 2 is a movie I recently went back and rewatched. And I remember that as not being that good. And I think I judged it too harshly because it's actually not a bad movie. It's actually a pretty good, fun movie. But I don't know. I see the Raimi Spider-Man films as bringing a quality to them that just appealed to everyone. You took in 1989, you took somebody who didn't like Batman or didn't like Tim Burton to see Batman, and they were like, yeah, that was all right. They really were, right? And because I remember I went with someone who took me, an adult who wasn't interested in Tim Burton, wasn't particularly interested in Batman, but he wanted to go see it. And he's like, yeah, it's fine. It was an action movie and it had a guy in a rubber suit. But I remember taking my wife and I going to see Spider-Man and her loving it while not caring anything about Spider-Man or comic books at all, because it had this incredible broad appeal that I think it took time, but it eventually opened the doors. And I think the X-Men were also trying to do something like that. And I think they got beat to the punch a little bit because I don't think X-Men 1 was that great. But X-Men 2 did that same sort of thing for X-Men and brought that level of quality and made that universe big, even though it was, locked into just who held the rights at Fox at the time. But I'll go back a little earlier. I'm going back pre-MCU, and I also am giving it to Marvel because I think they were just making better movies at the time.
I think you're going back too early, if I'm honest with you, because I think that the Spider-Man movies are great. I think what they had that Batman didn't have and maybe Superman didn't have before it was charisma. It brought a lot of real entertainment value to the character as opposed to just being an accurate portrayal or an artist's vision of the character. I mean, it was more universally appealing, I think you could argue, than Batman 89 or any previous comic book movie. But the question of when was the watershed moment for comic books? I mean, I think that's too early, because I still feel like after Spider-Man, it was a lot of, I'm kind of surprised we're getting another comic book movie, right? Like, I'm not surprised we're getting a Spider-Man 2 because Spider-Man 1 was great, but we were getting an X-Men movie and I never thought that would happen. We got Fantastic Four movies and I never thought that would happen. And it wasn't until Iron Man 2 that I no longer doubted it. And then I was like, oh, this is going to happen constantly.
That's fair.
And the The other thing that happened in Spider-Man 2 was the introduction of Scarlett Johansson's Black Widow, which I think, especially
Iron
for the
Man 2.
MCU,
Iron Man.
yeah. I'm sorry. Did I say
No,
Spider-Man?
it's all right. It's Spider-Man 2. You had me thinking, wait, whoa.
No, in Iron Man 2, that was the introduction of Scarlett Johansson's Black Widow, which really started the spinning. And if I'm not mistaken, I think Iron Man 2 was also the first post-credit sequence. I don't think
Nope.
Iron Man 1 had
Iron
one.
Man 1 had one. That was
Did
the,
it?
the
Was it-
Avengers Initiative with Nick Fury.
Was that Nick Fury?
Yep.
I thought that was Iron Man 2. Okay. In that case, maybe Iron Man 1 is the answer to the question.
They're all viable answers. I would argue that, and I definitely see your point, and I don't think there's a right or wrong answer to this question. I think it's a good discussion topic. The one thing I would say is I don't think without Spider-Man 1 and 2, I don't think we would have ever gotten an Iron Man movie, because I think that that the quality of those films showed you could make really good, entertaining comic book movies that had a broad audience, and that you could do that with characters that weren't just Superman. Or Batman, but even I think Batman had a little bit of comic book moviness stigma attached to, or comic booky geek nerd, whatever attached to it. But I think the quality of that, I give a lot of credit to Rami, because I think he just did so much for that genre of movies. And I don't know, so I'm not sure we would have got those without Rami opening the door and by making such great movies with such compelling villains. And you know, Spider-Man 1 is great. Spider-Man 2, like I said, it's like almost a Godfather 2 type situation where they're both so good. People, some can't decide which is better. I definitely think Spider-Man 2 is better, but I could totally be, listen to someone make that argument. But I see your point entirely about Iron Man. And Iron Man, those movies existed before Disney had purchased. I mean, they were doing it. Marvel was doing it on their own. Their whole Marvel Studios concept before the mouse backed up the money truck. And before Robert Downey Jr. was making ridiculous amounts of money just to show up. So I think they're all viable answers, but it's interesting how we're talking about Marvel movies, and neither of us are. I mean, we're not like anti-Marvel, but we've always leaned more DC in terms of our comic reading, and I think it's just because Marvel has certainly recently had higher volume and was more willing to take risks. Now, I mean, Batman Begins was absolutely fantastic. The Dark Knight, I think The Dark Knight showed that these movies in the right hands could be like, your Heat level, Usual Suspects, or really great crime drama level films. And I think that Nolan sort of, raised the bar. But I don't think he actually, if anything, he took steps back for DC in terms of the whole shared universe concept, because he didn't want that. That was not something he wanted at all, and wanted to keep all that stuff out of his films. He was pretty adamant about that. But he elevated it in other ways and opened doors for great actors to be in those films and to take it seriously, because they saw what had happened with all of with Begins, with Christian Bale, with Liam Neeson, and then certainly with The Dark Knight, with Heath Ledger's turn as the Joker. That's very serious performances could be done in these funny book movies. So, but I think we're giving a lot of credit to Marvel here for the films, and they were taking risks before DC was. So I will give that to them.
Well, absolutely, they did it better. And talking about the whole shared universe, cinematic situation, they did it better. And I think that that DC's big misstep was looking at what Marvel was creating and saying, we want that, when really what Chris Nolan handed them was, you can have your own thing that is very different from what Marvel's doing, but just as meaningful and just as great a potential. And instead they're like, no, we just want that. And I feel like that's always a bad place to start when you're talking about any kind of creation of arts. But that's probably beyond what we're talking about right now as far as the topic
they rushed
goes.
it, right? They rushed it. They went straight. They had a great Man of Steel, and then they had Batman, Superman, which rushed the introduction of the Justice League, right? When you consider that you had 3 heroes introduced with security cam footage with pre-made logos and theme music, or as like Luther spent a lot of time getting those videos like put together. Like, oh yeah, I think the Flash, I'm gonna give him this symbol, and then they went with it. It's like, really missteps were made.
But how many movies did Marvel have before the first Avengers? I mean, it was like 5 or 6.
Yeah, well, I mean, no, they had introduced, they introduced basically Hawkeye. They had at least 1 Thor movie, if not 2. They had Captain America. They had a couple more Iron Mans. So they had given us the core Avengers. They had Hulk, which the Hulk is a weird situation because of rights issues. Yeah. But they had a Hulk movie with Edward Norton. So they were patient. And built that shared universe, and they really, I mean, this may sound silly, but they made those end credit scenes. They made those like some of the most important parts of the film. Which before that, most of the time I was like, I gotta pee. I can't wait. I gotta get up and I can't wait for this. And now I'm like, if I hear there's an end credit scene, or if I suspect there's one, I'm waiting for it. Even in movies that I don't care, like we went and saw like Sonic. My daughter and I went and saw Sonic the Hedgehog 3, and we waited for the end credit scene, not because I'm a big Sonic the Hedgehog guy, but because I realized how important those have become to movies because Marvel used them to such great effect, right? So yeah, they did a lot of cool stuff. They always had that one old guy showing up. I don't know why. Stanley. I don't know what his last name was, but Stanley, the old guy. I always had him showing up. I don't know what. Maybe he was somebody's dad or grandpa.
Yeah, just giving him some work, I think.
I'm kidding. I know who Stan Lee. That's his first and last name is, folks. But they did that too. You know what? That was really cool. And I know that eventually they ran out of when his health got poor, and of course he passed away. But they ran out of those. But I miss those in Marvel films, and I hope they ghoulishly recreate him with AI and insert him into things. And I hope they don't do that. I hope they do. I'm sure that they won't. So yeah, where comic book movies have been. And so I want to ask you this, because there's been a turning point in quality. And let's talk about Marvel, because DC is just way too complicated, and I think there's too much emotion behind it. But there's been a turning point in quality with Marvel. And you and I have discussed this personally and on the podcast. But at what point do you think was Marvel's high point? And at what point did you realize that they're not going on a great trajectory here?
My high point for Marvel is the first Avengers movie. That is, it is excellent. It is well done. They earned it with the previous setup that we talked about. And very few of these types of summer tentpole movies that are released that I go and see am I completely satisfied with. And I would say that the first Avengers movie, I was completely satisfied. I mean, it was a super fun thing from the start, and then that famous sequence where Loki is making his crazy speech and Hulk just grabs him and throws him around the room a couple of times. You didn't see stuff like that in movies back then. I mean, that was kind of a very novel approach to heroes and villains, and it brought the house down. And I walked out of the first Avengers thinking, I don't know that it ever gets better than this.
Well, I mean, that's an excellent choice. That is a great film. I think it did get better from there. Not Age of Ultron. Age of Ultron is not a terrible movie, but I don't think it was a step forward. But I think, boy, it's a tough one. I'm gonna say that I think the high point was probably Civil War, which I realize is a Captain America movie, but it's really, to me, it's an Avengers film. When big parts of your movie are told from another character's point of view, which large parts of that movie are told from Iron Man's point of view, I think it's an Avengers film personally, but it doesn't matter. I think Civil War, I think that was Marvel's high point. I look at that, and even the introduction of Spider-Man, which was great, that isn't even my favorite part of it. I think it was the dichotomy between the worldviews of Tony Stark, Iron Man, and Steve Rogers, Captain America, were so well done, and so handled so maturely in a movie that's still fundamentally fun. That pun wasn't meant, but I would say that the high point for me came a little bit after that. I think a lot would say that Infinity War Endgame was the Marvel high point, and I have no problems with either of those films. I think Infinity War is a better movie than Endgame, but I don't think that they were as good as Civil War. I do think that they're probably better than the first Avengers. I think Infinity War is better than the first Avengers, probably not Endgame. I think that last 45 minutes of Endgame was exhausting. I probably needed like an IV and a nap and maybe some like a multivitamin, because it was just so much going on. And I also think the Infinity War benefited. I'm concerned. I don't know how to say that word. Benefited from having a bigger roster of characters, and they had some cool characters they got to use even from momentarily, that they didn't have for Avengers, the first one. That was pretty cool. I'll give an example: Doctor Strange, which I thought was really well used in Infinity War, even better than his own movie, Doctor Strange. I don't know. But I think that those are all, in my mind, everything we discussed here, they're all high points, right? And when you have that many high watermark potentials, that's a pretty good sign for your movie studio and your shared universe.
That's absolutely true. It is. But that begs a question, which is, if that's the high watermark, what's the low watermark?
So I'm going to say this. So I want to talk about like consistency, when it started to consistently drop off, not like an aberration of quality, right? Like I think Thor: The Dark World, Thor 2, was an aberration. It was a poor film, but it wasn't the sign of a consistent problem. I don't want to beat up a one-off bad film. I want to talk about when quality started to get poor. I will say this, generally, and this may be a kind of a cop-out, but I think it's when the introduction of Disney Plus series, that combined with the loss of Tony Stark and Chris Evans as Captain America and Robert Downey Jr. I remember when Tony Stark was playing Robert Downey Jr. It was real weird. He got weird with it those last few years. But it was
method.
It was very method. He got lost. Jim Carrey was giving him acting tips. He got lost inside of his character. But I do think that they lost those big characters, those big actors that people loved. And then they oversaturated the market with Disney Plus, which had some decent stuff and had some really questionable stuff at that point in time. And I think that's when that post Endgame is when they didn't have their heroes. They didn't have their A-list roster. Their villains were not great. They were making questionable choices about who was directing films. I think Tiki Wakata, or Tiki, I can't say his name, but I think everybody knows what I'm talking about, who made Ragnarok, which was a good movie, but then they let him make Thor: Love and Thunder, and he just went nuts and made a really bad movie. I think that those are questionable choices, right? Where they just let people go insane and did not, put constraints on them. And I think the Disney Plus shows got out of control too. WandaVision was okay; it was fine, but to me, it didn't really move anything forward. In fact, I think it moved things back, and that it took Wanda in a direction that I'm not sure people wanted a character that they liked to go, and that it gave us stuff like Agatha all along, characters that I don't think people care about, and they took Vision out off the picture, which people liked Vision, right? And he was a cool. Paul Bettany's a good actor. Vision's a cool character. And I don't know. I just think that there was such a saturation of that. I couldn't get through the Hawkeye series. I tried, couldn't get through it. I don't know. I felt like that was the turning point where quality started to get poor. It's also when you got Eternals, which I know is one of your favorite films.
Well, before I give my opinion, I wanted to respond to your comment that Paul Bettany is a really good actor. Yes, he is, and he does not get enough credit that he deserves for how good of an actor that guy is. And he was the shining point of WandaVision for me, and the only reason I stuck around and watched any of that show. But anyway,
It was fine. It was fine. It wasn't terrible. The problem was, the problem with WandaVision, and it's the problem with all the Marvel things, were though that you needed, in order to keep up with everything that was going on, you really did need to watch them, and most of them weren't worth the investment in time. So I think that that's where the oversaturation really became a problem, is that it took people like me who were invested and saw everything on opening night, and it just made it too expensive in terms of just hours in the day for me to keep up with it. And then you go see stuff like the Eternals. You're like,
stop stealing my thunder. So,
Yeah.
so yes, I think you have very well identified the point where we started to drop off and where it started to become a problem. I think I really feel like you've pinpointed that well. I will say personally, I was off the train way before that even happened. Like, I'm
Okay.
not even a big fan of Infinity War and Endgame. Like, they were, I just was not impressed by them. And this is not the podcast to go into all the reasons why. Just suffice to say, I was already off the Marvel train when the Disney Plus stuff happened. But I think that you're right. I think that's a good moment to say, okay, this is where we started to lose it, which is strange to me because it was no secret that Marvel and Kevin Feige were going to lose Robert Downey Jr., we're going to lose
Yep.
Chris Evans. They knew this was coming, and they had so much time to plan for an exit strategy for that and to really do another wave of Marvel, and they dropped the ball on that.
Yep.
Which is surprising considering how well they set up the first half of the cinematic universe. So it's a shame they did that. Now, I am going to go out and say the low water mark for me absolutely is Eternals, which is an abysmal movie with absolutely nothing redeeming for it. And when I saw Brave New World and they had the reference to the immortal, and I was like, oh really?
Yeah.
We're doing a callback to Eternals. Oh, that movie was such a waste of everything.
You kind of had to do that callback though, because it was such a big event. But you're right. It was a bad movie. Is it the worst? No. In the theater,
Really? What's worse?
Thor: Love and Thunder is absolutely worse than the Eternal.
No.
Have you seen Thor: Love and
Not
Thunder?
to me. I didn't see it in the theaters.
Okay, all right. You didn't pay for it. So
That's true. That's true. But Eternals, I didn't pay for Eternals either, and I still hate that movie.
Man, Thor: Love and Thunder is a bad movie. And that was the moment where we stopped seeing Eternals. Eternals slowed down us seeing Marvel movies in theaters. Thor: Love and Thunder pretty much shut it off until Deadpool Wolverine, which I wanted to watch because it was like, I just want to see what they're going to do with this. I did a short on that where I laid out my thoughts. I won't get into that. And then we did go back to see Brave New World, which I think that I gave well. But let's before I move into that, because I do think anything else we want to talk about for like low points. Do you really think Eternals is? Do you really think Eternals is worse than Thor: Love and Thunder?
I will watch any other Marvel movie repeatedly before I would watch Eternals again.
All right, okay. I mean, listen, I think Tiki Watata or whatever just lost his mind, and there was a few things that I found very offensive in Thor: Love and Thunder that you may not have picked up because I was the only one. I asked other people about it, and I won't repeat it. But there was a scene in the Hall of Gods or whatever where they made reference to something that just left me feeling uncomfortable. And I asked lots of people about it. They're like, I didn't notice that, but now that you mentioned that. Seems a little messed up. They made I guess I'll say it, right? And listen, if you think I'm nuts, listener, you know what? I'm a little nutty, but they made a reference to the god of carpentry, and they were kind of making a joke. And I'm like, listen, man, Jesus was a carpenter. Everybody knows that was his profession. I hope that's not a low-key Tiki Watata getting a dig in on Christianity, because I know that there is in some Asian cultures a god of carpentry. Maybe that's what it was, but it just felt like the kind of thing that a gross dude like Tiki Watata, whose name I'm pronouncing wrong, might kind of, I don't know. But that's not the reason why I disliked the movie. Part of it was also that they wasted Christian Bale, who was such a great actor, and they had a chance at him at the MCU, which was also what bothered me about the first Doctor Strange movie, is they had Mads Mikkelsen in the MCU, and they wasted him on a character that we'll never see again, right? And I was like, oh man, we should have given Christian Bale. He probably didn't want to do anything but one. That's fine, but put him in a better movie, give him something more interesting to do. But yeah, so there's low points, but I think that we really would agree that quality, consistency, that when the output went up, the quality went down. And it's not just that, it's not just, in my point of view, it's not just that there was more out there, so the averages were, everything went up, right? I think they actually were striking out more than they were getting on base. I think that they were not playing at their highest level. I think that overall, there was very few things that I can look at and say I enjoyed in that Disney Plus era.
Yeah, I don't think legally we can use a sports metaphor when talking about comic book movies, though. I don't think that's allowed.
Sports ball. We're not allowed to say things about sports ball. So let's talk about this year, because we have had some comic book stuff this year. And because this is a big year, right? And so we have had, and then we're about to get into the summer of comic books, where they go head to head, and we're going to figure out who is, what the future of this looks like. That's how important I think this summer is. But so let's talk a little bit about what we've had this year. So we've had, from a film point of view, we've had Brave New World, which I think I was probably generous to, because I was just so happy to go into a movie and enjoy some popcorn, and I didn't hate it. I had big problems with the movie, but I didn't hate it, and I still found it entertaining. I know you didn't like it that well.
Yeah.
But I found things to like about it. Even if the main villain is like the 75-year-old guy, Giancarlo Esposito. I think that's how you say his name. I'm not sure how you say it.
I don't know either, but
yeah, he's an old man fighting Anthony Mackie, who is a ripped superhero guy, and you have this guy in his 70s. It's not believable at all. And that movie went through massive reshoots. It had a title change. It was originally called New World Order, and they silently changed the title of it about a year before it was supposed to be released. Like, no fanfare. They just pulled all the marketing materials called New World Order and renamed it Brave New World. They had cut characters out, massive reshoots. The leader character All of his scenes were completely reshot with new prosthetics, new makeup. It went through some major changes, new dialogue written. So it was a troubled production. So it's interesting to think that what we got was the best version of the film. But so that was one, right? And then from a cinematic point of view, the other one, which is one I stand behind, which is Thunderbolts. Asterix, which I still think is a very good, fun movie. And I actually rewatched it. And because it just came out on streaming, and I bought it and rewatched it. And because I wanted to see, did I suffer from the same problem I did with Brave New World? Really, I became concerned.
Yeah.
But I still enjoyed it just as much and still found the acting in it. There's some great performances and some great actors in that movie.
Sure. My take on Brave New World, I didn't care for it. I mean, it was a harmless movie, right? There was nothing egregiously wrong with it, but there was also nothing entertaining or very great about it. I like Anthony Mackie. I wish he had been in a better Captain America movie. I like him as Captain America. Ford, it kind of pains me to see him in anything anymore because I feel like he's just playing a caricature of Harrison Ford at this point.
Give me I just spit on myself, viewers. You cut that out.
Yeah.
Give me my paycheck. That's what he's saying.
But I will say this about Brave New World. There is absolutely nothing that would have convinced me to watch that movie. Even you saying, hey, Chris, watch that movie. I was like, no, I'm not doing it. No interest. I'm not going to waste my time. Except I was stuck on an airplane and they had it in the seat back for free. And I was like, you know what?
It was free?
It was free, which might tell you about the quality level of. No, that's mean. I shouldn't say that, but that's the reason I watched it. Okay, so full disclosure, there are going to be people out there listening to this saying, "Oh, well, you watched it on a 7-inch screen with headphones on an airplane. Of course, you're not going to have a good time." Maybe there's something to that, but I'm not going to give it another shot. I did not like the movie. I found it extremely boring. It suffered from a huge problem that I'm seeing in tons and tons of movies lately, not just Marvel, which is the idea that people have forgotten that action sequences can also be story sequences.
Yes.
And I'm seeing this constantly where it feels like when the action starts, they just hit pause on the story, make me watch action for 10 minutes, and then we get back to it. Whereas if you go to like good movies, the action sequence actually continues it forward. There's character development in there. There's plot development in there. You can use this time wisely, Marvel. Please start doing it. And Brave New World, in my opinion, really, really, really suffered from that. I made a comment to you off mic, which is I felt Thunderbolts had the same problem, and you push back a little bit on that. And I've thought about it some more, and Thunderbolts is not as egregious about it as Brave New World was, but I still think Thunderbolts suffered from that problem quite a bit. So,
yeah, and I want to be careful about what is said here because there are probably many folks who have not watched Thunderbolts, but I think that the difference is that the Thunderbolts, that team that was assembled, they could not punch, kick, shoot their way through their bad guy, and they had to take a different tack. So the nature of the action scenes changed, and it had a more of a cerebral tone to it. And I liked what they did. I think part of it is because you had good actors playing these characters that I like generally. In fact, I will say this, probably the actor I think is maybe, I don't know, the weakest actor in the movie was Bucky Barnes, whose name I forgot the actor's name and I don't know why. Sebastian Stan, who I think is a very good actor, but that's how good I think that cast was. Is that it also, he didn't have a whole lot to do in the movie.
Yeah, my wife pointed that out as well because I made the comment that I really like him as an actor and the whole but I wish they'd do like a young Luke Skywalker movie with him in it.
Absolutely.
And she was like I don't see it, like I didn't, and we both were like, well, he didn't have a lot to do with this movie.
He didn't, and in some ways, I mean, I think they could have given him. I think they could have done it one or two ways. I think they could have either adjusted the marketing so he didn't look like he was the star, or they could have actually just given him more to do.
Yeah.
But the real star was White Widow, whose name is played by an actress who I can't remember. Folks, I'm on a lot of medication right now. So
Florence Pugh.
Florence Pugh, who is a fantastic actor, and I really like. In fact, I will say this: of course I like Black Widow and I like Scarlett Johansson. I think Florence Pugh's White Widow is a equally good replacement for her, which is not something I could say about most of these Marvel swap-ins that they've done to replace their older actors who are moving out of these films. I think she is as talented. In fact, as an actress goes, I think she's a better actress, and I think her character is just as equally interesting as Black Widow. So, and she was given a lot to do in the movie, and I really enjoyed that. I also enjoy U.S. Agent, as played by Kurt Russell's son and Goldie Hawn's son, Wyatt Russell, who does not really look like Kurt Russell or Goldie Hawn. He looks a little bit like this. Do you remember the Six Flags commercials where they had that weird old dude that was dancing?
I remember.
Yeah.
I do.
Go Google a picture of that guy and look at a picture of Wyatt Russell in his helmet. Without the helmet, he looks like a perfectly normal dude. But when you've got the helmet on and he looks bald, there's like this weird Six Flag old guy resemblance. But he's a great actor.
Wow.
The Lewis Pullman, who is Bill Pullman's son. I know Nepo Baby's here, but he's a great actor, and he is fantastic as Bob, and who's a key figure in the movie. And then, of course, Julia Louis-Dreyfus of Seinfeld fame is great as a character whose name is very long and I can't remember all of it. D. Fontaine but I thought it was a good movie filled with great performances that made me enjoy it, and I think it did something that a Marvel movie it hadn't done, and that was just entertained me, even without the action, right? And the action didn't have to even, it was entertaining by telling you just a great story with great characters. And I think those two movies, that's it, right? For theatrical.
Yeah.
Okay, so we did have some TV shows, right?
Yeah. Before we move on to the TV shows, let me put Thunderbolts to bed for my side of it, which is to say, I wasn't a huge fan. It was fine. It was better than Brave New World, but it did not instill me with a lot of confidence or a lot of anticipation to return to seeing Marvel movies in the theater.
And without giving anything away, did you watch the post-credit scene? Okay, all right. And I will say that Thunderbolts did the opposite for me. It made me more excited, and it gave me confidence because it was like, this is good. And let's obviously we got to get better. We got to get a lot better in order to do what they're trying to do in the future, which is Secret Wars, Doctor Doom, and all that stuff. But we did have a little bit of TV. We had Daredevil, which I've spoken about, Daredevil Born Again, which is just, man, I'm telling you, it's 8 episodes, I think, and you can watch the first episode and break it up into 2. It's only 30 minutes long, but you might need to break it up into 2 to stay awake. And then you can watch the episode which is the last episode with John Bernthal's Punisher in it. And that's really good because John Bernthal is, and I'm not even a Punisher fan. I don't care for the character that much, but he is such a good actor, and his take on the Punisher is so interesting that, and his dynamic with Daredevil is really, really good because they are friendly, but they also tolerate each other because their worldviews are very different. It's a very well done. And if you've seen the old Netflix show, which I'd watched some of, it's a continuation of that, but Bernthal is good. But that was mostly just really a boring show. And I don't understand why. I heard that they had cut a couple episodes of it out. I don't know why they made a comic book movie, a comic book TV show, and insisted on only having a character in costume for like, it was 8 episodes, 40 minutes an episode, and we got maybe 40 minutes of characters in costumes. So an eighth of the time it's a courtroom drama, or it's a drama or whatever, right? It's not a comic book show. And that only works with extremely good material with great actors and actresses, and that Daredevil did not pull that off. Also on the TV side, we had Peacemaker, which if I'm Warner Brothers and I've got everything riding on my upcoming reboot of the DC universe, and I've got my head guy, which is James Gunn, architecting this, writing scripts, directing films. And he comes to me and says, oh, by the way, I'm going to spend part of my time farting around making Peacemaker for HBO. I'm going to be like, that sounds like a great idea. That's genius. What a great way to spend your time. Peacemaker is, not very good. It's okay. It's absolutely filthy. But
is this the one with
John Cena, the wrestler?
John Cena? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Why are they making this?
I don't know.
Why are they, when they've got so much on the line, why are they investing so much of James Gunn's time and energy into Peacemaker? I do not understand. It makes no sense to me. And it actually kind of concerns me, because it's like, if this is where your priorities are, Mr. Gunn, this is not wise. This is unwise. And then I think we also just came out Ironheart, which I have not watched. I have no interest in, which is, a follow-up to Iron Man, which is a teenage girl, I guess, who builds her own Iron Man suit, as they are wont to do. And I think she was also in Wakanda Forever, which is Black Panther 2, which I have not seen. And when people here haven't seen that, they get frustrated with me. But when they refused to recast Black Panther, obviously Chadwick Boseman passing was awful, but that they needed to recast that character. That character needed to continue. T'Challa, and no one actor is bigger than their character. Even someone who was as well liked as Chadwick Boseman, so I had no interest in watching a movie called Black Panther that didn't have Black Panther in it.
Yeah, I'm glad that you mentioned Black Panther because it bears pointing out that even with my rather lukewarm opinion of Marvel as of late, Black Panther was great.
It was a very good movie.
The first one, excellent, and it was one of those like blips because that came after I was pretty much like sworn off Marvel movies. I was like, no, I'm done. I'm sick of it. Black Panther came out. I saw Black Panther. I was like, okay, that was quality. I really enjoyed that. And then I went off the train again. So, but I often forget it's there, which I should not do. But so I'm glad you mentioned it. And I just wanted to point out that was a very good movie.
So we had that, we had Ironheart, which I think that they've released it. It was going to be 8 episodes. I believe they cut it down to 6. Not a good sign. And I think they did it in two episode dumps, like they dumped 3 episodes and they dumped 3 episodes. That's also a very bad sign. They did something similar with Echo when they cut it down. So I have no confidence in what they've done there at all. Listen, you are not going to recapture Iron Man's magic. You gotta find other characters, and not try to do that, because it's just not going to work. Was there any other TV? I don't think I watched anything else. I don't know.
I don't think I knew about most of those, so I'm glad that you did that synopsis.
All right. So now we've got it, right? And this is sort of the heart and soul of the discussion here, is the 2 legacy characters upon which the backs of DC and Marvel were built on Superman, and then on the Fantastic Four. And you've got those movies coming out 2 weeks apart. This episode is going to drop right around the same time Superman comes out. You and I are going to see it the day, the Saturday after it opens, right? So opening day, I guess, is Thursday technically, but we'll see it that Saturday, and we'll drop some thoughts on that very, very quickly after seeing it. And James Gunn, his first really, his first true, obviously, movie in the new DC universe. The second live action piece, because Peacemaker is, which just, again, priorities, man. And then we've got another legacy group, which is, Marvel, the Fantastic Four. I don't think I need to say this, but when it comes to comic book interests, I mean, obviously I have a lot more interest in Superman than I do in the Fantastic Four. I mean, Fantastic Four are not, I don't think, I mean, obviously they're important to the history of comic books, but I think that the best thing about the Fantastic Four is their villain, Doctor Doom, right? I mean, that's their big contribution. And you can make the argument that they're not even really superheroes. They're explorers, they're adventurers, they're scientists, but they're not always, superheroes, right? They're not always, fighting crime. They're more on the cosmic, level, and they only get involved in, big, Earth or multiverse shattering type things. That being said, these two are basically going head to head, right? There's 2 weeks apart, and who's going to come out on top? And in terms of critical reception, in terms of audience reception, and in terms of box office. And who needs this more, Marvel or DC? Because they both need it. They both need a hit, because Brave New World lost money. Thunderbolts, it's unclear, but if Thunderbolts made money, it didn't make a lot. And Disney, they've got mouse money. They got a lot of it, but they won't continue to put good money for bad, right? And DC is trying to launch a whole new universe here. It has to be successful, or James Gunn will be looking for another job where he can make filthy fart jokes all he wants.
From my perspective, I think DC has more on the line, and Warner Brothers has more on the line.
I agree.
Because if Fantastic Four tanks, Marvel still has that carrot dangling of Robert Downey Jr. as Dr. Doom.
Yep, and they still got the X-Men. They still got.
That's true.
They've got characters on the shelf. They've got a whole shelf of action figures they can pull down and play with. No, really, right? And I tend to agree. In fact, I agree so much that I don't even understand why they're making that big of a deal about the Fantastic Four. I would not have put it head to head with Superman. I would have given them their moment and let DC have it, and I would have put it earlier or later in the summer. Because I just don't think...
Here's a legitimate question. Why does Marvel care that much? Has there been any other comic book movie that has had 4 failures and still getting a movie?
Great question. I think you could make the argument that the X-Men, it has had its rough patches, right? But it continues to get chances. But I mean, this with the Fantastic Four,
they started strong.
They started strong, and they got stronger with X2.
Whereas Fantastic Four,
it never had a good.
No, and absolutely all day long you can say, well, this one with Pedro Pascal is probably the first time that they've done it competently. Pedro Pascal?
Who's that? I'm not familiar.
No,
with this.
Never heard of him. Okay, no. He's gonna be huge. Trust me, he's gonna be big.
Has he been in anything else?
Yeah, a few things.
Okay.
Just look him up after the podcast.
It says here he's in literally everything.
Everything.
In fact, he's in my living room right now. He's putting on a one-man show for my family. We got to go in there and check this fellow out. Refuses to shave his mustache. So that's a note.
So you could make the argument that this is the first real effort that they've made. Because I think every other iteration of this franchise was horribly flawed.
Yeah, although can I say this? 2005 and 2007, there's a certain charm there. And if you...
I don't even remember which one those are.
The one...
those are Chris Evans.
Chris Evans. Yeah. Ian Grufford, or however you say his name, is Mr. Fantastic, who is also... He's in my living room, but he's actually doing some home repairs for us. He's our live-in handyman. He hasn't been able to get work in years. Those movies have a certain charm, but it's not like I'm going to invest $300 million into this property level of charm. It's just kind of funny, kind of silly. The Fantastic Four with when Lawrence Fishburne voiced Silver Surfer. That's a pretty good voice choice, right?
Agreed.
And those movies they're fine, but no, I don't understand, because they're to me, again, as a DC guy, I don't understand the importance. I think you can get all the lore you want out of Marvel, including Doctor Doom, without the Fantastic Four. In fact, you could say the most interesting things about Doctor Doom. You could have brought him in the scope of Doctor Strange and the magic side. And even or Black Panther with the technology side, and a marriage of both. You got Wakanda; it's got all this tech. Well, you've also got, what is it, Latvia? I can't remember the Doctor Doom's country's name, but he could have had his own, right, like this little hermit country with incredible technology and magic woven into it. You don't need the Fantastic Four, and I agree with you. Why have they made such a big deal of this? I will go see it. I will go see it opening night. I'm very curious about it. But if it fails, it just means that Marvel's just got to go to their other characters. And here's the other thing about it that's kind of weird, is this is not set in the mainline Marvel universe. This is set in one of the multiverse universes in the 60s. And they're... it's set in, and this is common knowledge, right? Because no one's mentioned the Fantastic Four, right? It's not like the Ant-Man where they've kind of like, oh, he was a secret working for us. No, the Fantastic Four are huge celebrities in this world that they're from. But if you want to see, like, you'll get Easter eggs, but you're not going to see, 1960s. You're not going to see Uncle Ben showing up as proto Spider-Man, right? You're not going to get that kind of thing. So you're not even in a world, or Tony Stark's dad, you're not going to see him showing up helping out Reed Richards, I don't think. I guess being the multiverse and multiple copies, maybe, I guess, but I would be doubtful of that. But I don't know. I'm struggling to see the appeal. But a deal has been made of it. Marketing has said you need to see this. And I think people are going to go see it. But I'm in total agreement, right? DC must. This has to be a success. This doesn't have to just turn a profit. It has to turn a really healthy profit, because Warner has had a terrible year with like Mickey 17, which lost money. Terrible movie, folks. The Minecraft movie was a success. They've had some other movies that have not made money too. I'm struggling to remember, but Warner's not had its best year. They need this. James Gunn needs this. This is the launching point. And I'm really looking forward to it. Obviously, being DC, but what I'm looking forward to more than anything is that it's stepping into a lived-in world, and we're going to meet characters that have been around for a while, right? We're getting Guy Gardner, we're getting Mr. Terrific, we're getting Hawk Girl. By the way, Hawk Girl is in Alien Romulus. She plays the mother of the alien-human hybrid. That's Hawk Girl.
The actress.
The actress.
Not Hawk Girl.
No, Hawk Girl herself. She's not flying around on a space station with wings. Yeah. I didn't know if you knew that, because I didn't know that. Isabella Merced, I think is her name.
I did not realize.
And, we're getting a comic-accurate Guy Gardner, which is mind-blowing that they even gave him that haircut, right? And, man, I'm excited. I'm very, very excited.
So I am not. I'm not excited for Superman. I am going. We'll see it together. Here's my prediction, and I hope I'm wrong. But my prediction is James Gunn is the wrong tone for launching a DC universe, because that kind of quippy, irreverence that worked so well for Guardians of the Galaxy, I think he's going to try to bring that to Superman, and I think that's a mistake. maybe I'm wrong. All I know about Superman is the trailers that I've seen.
Yep.
None of them have impressed me. They all look slapdash. It looks like 4 different movies that they've cut together into one movie. I don't understand that, but I understand it's just a trailer, and there's going to be a lot of hyper cutting in a trailer to get a 2-minute teaser out there. So we'll see, right? And we'll do an episode on our thoughts and get that out there. But I'm not excited. I'm not hopeful. I think that this is going to go badly.
I am hopeful. I am excited. All of the fears you expressed, I have them as well. I want it to be successful because I want a DC universe that works. I love Justice League International, the early days of the Justice League, the early 90s, Keith Giffen. It's Keith Griffin. It's Giffen. Keith Giffen was the music producer,
Yes.
right? Keith Griffin.
Keith
I love
Griffin.
that, and I think that Gunn has captured that tone. The thing to remember about that era of the Justice League Superman is nowhere near it, right? So that's a concern.
Yeah.
But I'm hopeful that at least I think I'm going to walk away with at least being happy with Guy Gardner, because he is got the right sensibilities for Guy Gardner, and I do think that that's a possibility. But I'm really hopeful. I think there's some stuff that looks really good. I think Nicholas Hoult, or Hoult, I'm not sure if I'm saying it right, looks like a good Lex Luthor. I think that there's a lot. I think we're going to see a ton of Easter eggy stuff that will probably, you and I being, DC, being, pretty well seeped in the history of DC, we're going to recognize these things. Well, I don't think they're going to get past us. So I'm really looking forward to it. But all of your concerns, if you go back to our very first episode of TMAG, we were talking about this and we had all of these same concerns. But I will say that I have become much more optimistic about it over the course of the last 6 months. And this is probably my most anticipated movie, certainly of the year, but probably since The Dark Knight Rises. That's how excited I am for this. So, man, I hope he doesn't mess it up. But if I tell you what, if it stinks, if it stinks, it's going to be pretty clear whose fault it was. I mean, this will not be was it this? Was it that? James Gunn had full creative control over this. He did the casting. And I think we're going to see, I think we'll know pretty quickly if it's deemed a failure by Warner based on what James Gunn's LinkedIn page says his current job is. Hey, I'm open to new opportunities. Like he's like interviewing it with Todd McFarlane. Like, let me do your Spawn movie, man. That's Todd McFarlane, right? I got that one right, didn't I? Okay, all right.
You did.
But yeah, so who's going to make more money? Who's going to? I think it's going to come down to this. I think that you take all this other stuff out of it. I think Superman appeals to a much broader range of people than the Fantastic Four does. I think Fantastic Four is getting interest because it's attached to the Marvel machine, and the marketing has told you should be interested in this. And I think that, but Superman is just interesting on his own. And I think they've done a good job of marketing it over the last couple months. I think they maybe have shown too much of the movie. I've stopped watching clips. I don't want to see anymore. I watched a clip on accident today and I was like, oh, I didn't want to see that. But I think that they're both going to turn a profit. I think that I think neither of them are going to be the biggest movie of the summer. I think Jurassic Park is actually going to make more money than both of them. I think it made $380 million worldwide on opening weekend. Jurassic
Something
Park,
like that, yeah.
That's a monstrous amount of money, and I don't think either of them are going to globally get to that amount of money in opening weekend. I think if either of them break 300 million, I'd be pretty shocked. But I think in the long run, I think Jurassic Park will make more than them. And I think I would say this globally, I would think Superman is going to be between 7 and 800 million, and Fantastic Four will be between 6 and 700 million, which means they both turn profits. But I think Warner Brothers is looking for Superman to make $1 billion. And I think that might be the bar that James Gunn needs to keep his job as the vision director for DC. And he might make it, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure he will. I don't know.
Yeah, completely agree with that analysis. I'm not smart enough to put a dollar figure on it, but I will agree that I think Superman at the end of the day will make more than Fantastic Four.
Do you think Jurassic Park's going to win the day though, for the whole summer?
Yes, I do,
Yeah.
which surprises me because I did not think there was anything left in that tank. Even when they were like, "Oh, we're doing another one," and Scarlett Johansson, I was like,
Yeah.
not gonna make that one. So, which shows what I know. But so I was surprised.
Yeah, no, people love those movies. People love dinosaurs. I mean, yes, and I think that it's not a comic book movie, which these huge summer blockbusters that are not comic book movie. I would love to do like interview 100 people who saw Jurassic Park, just sort of a random sampling set, and figure out how many of them went and saw it just because it was the big popcorn film that had nothing to do with people in capes. You know what I mean?
Right.
I'm curious if it's like a sort of a reaction to, we don't get a lot of these big kind of movies that aren't superhero centered. So I don't know. I would be curious, but yeah, I do think it will win. My wife and son and youngest daughter went today to see Jurassic Park. And they did not love it. In fact, I would say that one member of the family didn't even like it. Yeah. I won't say much more than that because I haven't seen it. I don't want to I don't want to disparage it unfairly, but I will watch it. But I do need to go back and watch a couple of the Chris Pratt movies that I didn't watch because I didn't think there was anything left in that tank either, and I'm not a big dinosaur guy. And now they're saying, from the fossil records that dinosaurs have feathers. That's not cool. I don't want to imagine dinosaurs with feathers, man. Thankfully, they haven't put that in Jurassic Park. But no, I just have no interest in the dinosaurs. But I'll watch it, I guess. So.
Well, it'll be interesting to see how Superman shakes out, and we will be here to report on that. And when we do report on that, Dave, where can they find that information?
You know what? You can find it in all kinds of places. One place you can't find it, though, is the official Chris Evans fan club. Keep that in. Chris Pratt's fan club does have a lot of T-Mag stuff. We are close with Mr. Pratt, Mr. Pine, and Mr. Hemsworth. Chris Evans is the Chris we don't like. I don't know. He's fine. I don't know. I don't even know why that became a joke. You can find us at 2middleageguys.com, the numeral 2middleageguys.com, and of course on Facebook, just search for 2middleageguys.com. You'll find us, our page. You'll see links to all of our episodes anywhere you can hear a podcast, whether it be Apple, Spotify, or YouTube, or I'm assuming that there's other ones that weirdos use that I don't know what they are.
Audible.
But Audible, right? Weirdos use Audible. I think a lot of people use it that aren't weird. But you can find if it's a podcast distribution platform, we are on it. You can find us. Check us out on YouTube. If you like the show, hey, send us a note. We'd love to hear from you. If you disagree with what we're saying here, if our assessment of the state of comic book movies is wrong, let us know. I'd love to hear some other viewpoints. I would like to hear some defense of comic book movie viewpoints because I'm not hearing that. I'm seeing it like on posts online, but I'm not hearing people talk about it. I'd love to get a dialogue going with a real human, not a bot, about where comic books are and defending that. So, let us know, and Chris and I would love to hear from you. So shoot us a message, or shoot us an email, or a smoke signal, or any one of those things.
Yep. And until next time, we'll see you.